Welcome to this session in the Project Virtual Conference 2015. This session is called 80% of Project Management is Communication and Collaboration. So what can Microsoft Project do for you? My name's Ben Howard and my contact details are on the screen. Due to a scheduling issue that I've had, I'm actually not delivering this session live. I'm afraid I've had to pre-record it. That's slightly ironic from my perspective, but that's just the way life goes. So let's get on with the session then. The first thing we need to do is say a big thank you to all of our sponsors out there. Without you guys, without your support, we wouldn't be able to host this Project Virtual Conference. And I know, given that we've got around 1,000 users or over 1,000 users, then this is a conference that has been really well attended, and obviously there is a need for such a conference too. Thank you to all of you guys out there. Let's just do a little bit about myself. There's a bit of a dodgy photo, but what I actually do is run a small project server consultancy from the UK. I've been doing that for the last 8 years, and literally I do project server, project online implementations, and as part of that I do Microsoft project training, I write some blogs, and I do various other things. The most proud of which is that I am a Microsoft MVP for project. There's 40 of us around the world, and we're given that accolade, if you like, for the help and the support that we try and give to the community. We give that time freely, simply because we do love Microsoft Project and think it's the best tool in the world for doing scheduling. Plainly it is. And we also know that there is a lot of misunderstanding about how to use Project and how to use Project Online, and we like to try and clear up that misunderstanding so that people get the best value of that tool. This Project Virtual Conference is an example of a lot of MVPs coming together with a lot of other people, our sponsors and other volunteers who are prepared to give their time and donate their time to run sessions for you for free. Okay, what else have we done? Well, I was lucky enough to be offered the chance to author a book, so that was Project Plain and Simple 2013. That really is an introduction, a beginner's guide on just how to use Microsoft Project. I also do some presentations and some articles for the Microsoft Project user group. That's something that you can join. It's not a huge fee, and you get access to lots of online training, etc. Somebody once took one of my ideas about using some VBA to export project tasks into Outlook. Since that feature was deprecated a few years ago by Microsoft, and it's not available just in Microsoft Project anymore, then we took this opportunity to write a little add-in so that you could export tasks directly from Project into an Outlook calendar, and therefore you can see in Outlook what activities you've got across your project plans. So that was quite a fun exercise. I also do a little bit of work for Pluralsight. Pluralsight are an online training organization, and I've got 3 videos with those guys about how to use Microsoft Project and how to use and install Microsoft Project Server. So quite a varied amount of work that I do. Plainly, I've not mentioned the day job, which is really going out and seeing customers and doing consultancy for customers. Okay, so that's enough about me. Let's talk about the slides. So, this is the title, 80% of project management is communication and collaboration, and plainly I made up that figure of 80%. It depends upon your style of project management. But what is absolutely key is that we don't work alone. We are not an island, and we need to work together in order to deliver any solution or any project. So let's have a look at some of the tools that we may have at our disposal in the sort of project world. The first, of course, is that we can do things like Skype. We can share Skype information, we can use Skype to communicate, instant messaging, video chats as a replacement for a telephone. I use Skype all of the time. In fact, I prefer Skype if I'm sitting at my desk to picking up the phone, because I've typically got some headsets on, or a headset on and a microphone, and I can just instantly collaborate with one person by talking to them, and I can be collaborating with another person by having an instant message chat. So Skype's really useful. Obviously it was previously called Link. We can do the old stuff such as sharing files, that's fine. And there's been some features around for a long time, since 2010, where we can synchronize our project task list with a SharePoint task list and keep those two in sync. So that, if you like, would be the next level of collaboration that I'd look at. If we look at sort of my day job generally is to do with Project Online and Project Server. And when I talk about Project Online or Project Server, you can insert the other application there. Okay, they're both effectively the same from our perspective, communication and collaboration. And Project Online allows us then to put a project onto a website. We can see that in something called the Project Center. We can collaborate on that. We can share tasks across resources and teams, and we can share documents in a project site and collaborate on issues and risks, those sorts of things. So that all works well. What else do we have? Well, I put down there copy and paste to Word Excel. And I put this in simply because a recent customer engagement of mine, one of the customers in the training environment turned around and said, I can't copy and paste anything from Project into Excel. I'd really like to know how to do that. And I said, okay, well, that's easy. So I just thought we'd include that. P2O, of course, is my own Project to Outlook application. I won't demo that. So collaboration is all about working together. Communication, slightly different. This is about just having a discussion, not necessarily about working together and collaborating, but actually communication is talking. And that can be one way, communication, such as this session, and I apologize for that. Or it can be bidirectional, where we probably have a discussion about something, but it's not necessarily working together. So I've split those two up, communication versus collaboration. Communication, therefore, I very much look at being the output of something within Project. So that would be a report, and that report could be a timeline, of course, where we can print things off on a time within a timeline view in Microsoft Project. We can, of course, the traditional way that we would communicate our project plan is by creating and printing views. And I put down filters there as well. Most of what we need to do in Microsoft Project is find ourselves in the right view, looking at the right set of data, and then we can work on that correct set of data, and often we'll get at that by applying a filter. It might be a milestone filter, it could be a critical task filter, it could be a filter of all tasks that are scheduled in the next 2 weeks. Those sort of things are very useful to do, and we must be able to do those. We must be able to use our filters and our views and hide columns and insert columns and group and sort the data in order to quickly identify or quickly access the information in what could be a very large project plan very, very quickly. And that's important. And another feature that I really like, and again I use on a monthly basis for an organization I work with, is visual reports, where we export some key data, cost or work information into Excel, and we have a standard Excel template for that, or multiple Excel templates, and then we can just work with the data in Excel as we typically would, producing graphics and charts, etc. Okay, so now we know what we're going to cover. The rest of this session is all pure demo, so expect the next 40 to 50 minutes to be demo. Okay, so let's switch over to a project schedule here, and you can see that I've opened up, in this instance, Microsoft Project 2016. So I'll be doing my demos across Project 2016 and Project 2013, but this demo is specific really in one of the features to 2016. Now Skype, for me, or Link as it was called, is just an ad hoc communication tool. It allows me to collaborate with associates and employees, etc. And as I said earlier, it's really, really useful. What I've got here is a plan that I downloaded from the web, and I've just modified a couple of resources, and you can see I've got a resource name there, Andrea, and one called Ben. And the Andrea resource has an icon next to that to display Andrea's online status. So let me just show you how that works. If I go over to the resource sheet and I double click on Ben, then when I open that up, what Link is doing is just checking for this email address and associating that or reviewing that against your Link client. So if I type in the email of ben@applepark.co.uk, that is my email address, and because I'm not online, if you do want to send me some queries about this session, then please do use that email address to do so. I'll click OK. What happens now is that the system says, hey Ben, you are logged into Skype, and that's true, I am. And if I mouse over that user, then we can start to see a little pop-up toaster come up, which allows me then to initiate some link form of communication with that resource. So that all works really well, and that was the same in 2013. The problem that we had in 2013, and that actually exists in 2016 as well, is this pop-up toaster gets in the way. Wherever you see a resource and you mouse over resource name, this pop-up toaster sort of pops up, and it can be off-putting. So what Microsoft have done in the 2016 version is allow us to go into options, and they've put a little checkbox in the display tab here called online status next to name. So if I uncheck that and click OK, that goes and edits the registry, but effectively it turns off those icons for us. Now, if you say, well, that's great, Ben, but actually our organization uses Project 2013, I'd like to turn that off. You can do so, but you need to go and edit your registry. Here's the registry setting that you need. This is well documented in various places. You can look on my blog, or you can look on Paul Mather's blog as well. Paul is a fellow MVP in the UK. But here's the key that you need. It's local computer, HKey, current user, software, Microsoft Office 15 for Project 2013, MS Project, and then settings, and you want this key here called disable IM status. And if you set that to 1, then the IM status is disabled, and if you set it to 0, then it is enabled. You need to restart Project in order for Project to take that setting. So that really is my Skype demo done. Let's go over and have a look at how we might just save a file to OneDrive SharePoint. Fairly basic, I know, but let's review that. Okay, so just back in this project schedule, if I was to click on File in order to save this, let's click on Save As, because I've saved this file before elsewhere. I opened this up actually from my desktop, but you can see that I've got the ability to save this out to a OneDrive, or even put it on a SharePoint site. So again, slightly different tools. And I've got a OneDrive application here with an account of Ben at 2013 applepark.onmicrosoft.com. So I'll just click in there. I'll open up this browser dialog. That goes away and contacts the server for information. So once it's contacted that server for the information, you can see that it opens a Save As dialog box. So this is going out to my 2013 applepark.onmicrosoft.com account, which is effectively Office 365. So that's where this is hosted. I've got a folder here called Project Virtual Conference. In fact, we'll just create a new one. So I'll enter the new folder name. I'll just call this vconf. So I navigate into vconf, and I can just save this project plan to the folder as I normally would. And you can see here that this is uploading this onto that OneDrive site for me. Okay, so that's great. That's the project shared. Let's go and have a look at that. So if I was to open up a browser and I was to go and find my OneDrive, here we can see my personal OneDrive folders. And then here's my project plan that I've just saved literally a few minutes ago. So that works very well. I can then of course go and share this plan with other resources in my organization. So I'm not going to bother doing that. We'll just come out of there. Now let's go back to the project schedule. You can see within the Save As dialog that I've got the ability to save this to my OneDrive account. If our organization, or we perhaps have more of a team structure, then I may just save it directly to a SharePoint site and put it on a team SharePoint site that I'm using. So I look at OneDrive as a way of me saving my personal files, and then I can choose to share those with individuals if I like. If I then look at SharePoint and saving files into SharePoint, I'm really thinking about saving files so that an organization or a team can see them, and if I save them into a team site, then of course everybody who has access to that particular folder in that team site already can see the file, so I don't need to set up the sharing option, if you like. The next thing that I can do, of course, is this one at the top, which says sync with SharePoint. So what this is going to do is synchronize the task list that I have with a SharePoint site task list. Okay, so we've got this option here, and it says sync with a SharePoint site. So we can choose a new SharePoint site or an existing one. I'm going to choose a new one here. I'm going to give this a name, so I'll call this SW Dev Plan. Okay, for whatever project. Here is the URL of my SharePoint site that I'm logged into. So if I click save here, then what this will do is it will go out and it will contact my SharePoint instance, and it will go away and create a new site for me called SW Dev Plan, and as part of that process it will go and synchronize up my project activities to the SharePoint task list. Now, first time we do this, again, this might take a couple of minutes, so we'll wait for this to happen. Okay, so you may see this sort of error, and it says we can't synchronize resource Andrea to the task list because the resource does not exist in the SharePoint server. That's absolutely true. So we can just read that, understand it, and click OK. We'll carry on that synchronization. Now, one thing I should say is that the SharePoint task list is not as sophisticated as a project task list, and the links between the activities in SharePoint need to be of type finish to start, and we can't, we need to be careful of if we put a delay in there or a lead or a lag time. But assuming that we've either got just manually scheduled tasks in our project plan, or we've got links that are just finished to start, then this should synchronize up quite nicely. And you can see what it does is it opens up our browser for us and displays that site that we've just created. So this is so this is our site called Software Dev Plan, and we get a project summary up here. We can see the up and coming tasks. Okay, and this carousel will change for us, but more importantly, if we go and access the task list, which of course is here, then we have a synchronization between the tasks that we've created on our project schedule and the tasks here. Those are all synchronized up. Now, we've got this being SharePoint. We've got a few different views that we can choose. We can have a look at all tasks, calendar tasks, completed tasks. We could have a look at the Gantt chart. Let's go and have a quick look at that. Okay, so that's quite a nice feature. Of course, we can have a look at late tasks, my tasks, upcoming tasks, etc. So this is a very useful tool. I'm recording this on the 21st of October, so it doesn't look like there's going to be too many late tasks for me, because this was due to start around the 29th of, actually let's just see, no, a little bit before then. We're due to start actually around the 26th of October, so there's not going to be anything that's late for me yet. We do a few other things in here, such as adding particular tasks to the timeline. So we have a timeline up here, and if we had specific tasks that we wanted just to show and communicate and collaborate on, then of course we could add those to the timeline. And as part of my communication and collaboration, of course, I can take this timeline. It's visible for everybody. I could cut and paste it into another application, Word, or an email application, in order to just communicate various things to my project team. So let's just come into determine project scope, and let's imagine that we'd like to assign that to a user. So I'll just edit that item, and I'm going to assign that to a user called Ben Howard. That's me, so we shall do that. You can see in here I could change the start date or the due date. SharePoint doesn't have the idea of a finish date, so we map, and it's mapped automatically for you. The finish date in project is mapped to the due date, so that mapping occurs, and you can set up your own mappings. So we could assign that to Ben Howard, and actually Ben Howard could say this is 50% complete. Again, we have no concept in SharePoint of time phase data, so I'm not really tracking work here. I am just tracking who's doing what activity. Let's go and do the same with secure project sponsorship. We'll edit that item. We'll assign that to Ben Howard, and actually maybe I've done that already, so maybe that's 100% complete. So again, I'm not concerned at this stage about a status date. I can then of course use this just to have a look at what are my tasks. Okay, so within the screen we can refresh that round, and we can begin to see just the tasks that are associated to Ben Howard, and you can see secure project sponsorship is actually completed. Now let's go back to our project plan now. So if we go back to our project schedule, I'm just going to close this down. And there's a reason I'm doing that. Do I want to save changes to project 1? No, I won't save anything to project 1. We've saved and synchronized that plan up to SharePoint. And I'm going to effectively open the same plan in project 2013. I've actually opened project 2013. You can see here it is. And this is then going to initiate taking the data down from the browser and putting it into Microsoft Project. And we can see this is working here, and on my other screen I'll bring this in. It says Microsoft Project contacting the server for information, and it's going to download and synchronize those tasks back into Microsoft Project. So I kind of have this two-way synchronization between SharePoint. So we can see that synchronization. This is coming down from SharePoint, the SharePoint task list. downloading the list items, etc., etc. And once it's done that, we can then go into the Gantt chart and we can begin to review that data. Here it is. So here are the activities coming down in this instance. So we can see that this activity was assigned 50% to Ben Howard, or we assigned it to Ben Howard, so that's okay. And this one was 100% complete. And maybe we come in here as a project manager and I update this task as being 100% complete, and I can mark all of these as complete as well. Therefore the scope is complete. And if I saved and synced this back up to the SharePoint site, which I can do here, then again that would just mark those activities as being complete. We can click OK through that and begin to perform that synchronization. So saving and syncing syncing a file to a SharePoint site is a really great way to begin to collaborate with other people on your team. And again, remember this SharePoint site, we can do other things in here. We've got the direct integration of our OneNote notebook, so we can go and create meeting notes, etc. Online in there, and we can of course go back and upload documents and create other list items for us really to begin to collaborate on that whole project plan. So it's not just for me about having a task list. Actually, it's about being able to go in and upload some documents, etc. Just being able to drag them into this area, and then everybody being able to collaborate on the documents, not just for task list, but for Word documents, the Excel issues and risk documents, for business case. All of those things are available to us in our SharePoint site. Okay, so now we've resynchronized that with SharePoint. Let's look at the next level of collaboration, if you want, which for me would be Project Server. And Project Server has been around in a Microsoft form since 2002, and we've had Project Online actually since 2013 or 2013. So hopefully you're already aware of its capabilities and the solution. For now, I would always consider Project Server and Project Online to be equivalent products in terms of their features and capabilities, although there are a couple of differences, but I talk about them as the same type of solution. So what we'll do is we'll open a browser and begin to show you some of the sharing and collaboration features of Project Online. So without any further ado, let's find that browser. And in this instance, I'm going to open up Firefox, just because it's a different browser to Internet Explorer. Let's bring that over here, and we will just enter our login.microsoftonline.com. We will choose, I've got a few accounts as you can see here, this one. Enter our username and password as we've done before, and I'll go to projects, but actually I've got a different instance that I want to go and look at. So I've got multiple tenants, but we won't go to the PWA instance. Actually we'll go to the Apple Park instance. We'll just allow that to happen, and yep, that's fine on there as well. So this is Project Online. Project Server looks pretty much the same. There's a new feature which is around resource engagement and capacity planning capabilities. I need to enable that within my Project Online solution. However, if we go to projects, then what we're able to see is a set of projects within our project environment, and we can see those in different ways by clicking on the browser here and choosing a different drop-down menu from the ribbon in Project Online. So at the moment I'm looking at a summary view, but if I wanted to look at a tracking or work view or any other view, we could easily do this. This is not a particularly well populated Project Online system. As you can see, it's literally pretty much a demo system. However, if we go and open up Microsoft Project again, let me just close this one down. So that's, we won't bother saving those tasks, and close down again and then click on open. Then what you'll see is I get a dialog box asking me to log in to a specific profile. So in this case, this is my Apple Park instance in Project Online. Microsoft Project will go and connect to that. So again, this can be Project 2013 or 2016. In this instance, this is 2016. That will authenticate my user against that instance, and if it needs to, it will ask me for the various credentials. So if I come into Project Online here and click on Browse, then you'll see that once I've retrieved the list of projects from a server, those list of projects there, or that list of projects, is the same list that I had within my project site there. So we'll go and open up this one. Last modified back over a year ago, or pretty much a year ago. Yep. So we'll see what's in there. Project is open in read-only mode. We'll check that out, and of course I can then come in and begin to enter some other resource names or task names. T2, T3. I might put in a milestone there. We might do all of the good linking that we can do with these activities. We'll link these together. Control F2. We'll change the projects that it starts today. So all of that good project management aspect that you would expect. Click OK. We can put in other custom fields. We will assign some resources to this. So if I come into the resource tab and click assign resources, we'll make sure that we assign Ben to all of those resources or all of those activities, and you can see that that's now happened. So now if I was to go and publish this project, and I've got a little shortcut on the quick access toolbar there, but to show you the proper way of doing, I'll click on the publish button here, and I'm going to look for this project being saved and published, which I can see down at the bottom here, publish 0% complete, etc. And that will become 100% complete. I just typically wait for that to happen. So that's all well and good. So now within my project web app application, my project application, if I refresh this screen, again I'm doing this on Firefox. I've got customers who just use Macs for this type of thing. You can see we've got the integration here of the presence at the moment. It doesn't know if I'm logged in or not. We've got some percent complete and work, and we can see actually that activity is being published and is starting today. I could open this up. So again, I can open this web browser up to anyone within the organization, and automatically it's opened up to people who are on the system. So that's Ben Howard. So there's those activities coming through from Microsoft Project. And if I opened up the tasks here, I would see those tasks having been assigned to Ben Howard. So that's fine. What else can we do in Project Online? Well, what we can do is all of that collaboration that you saw before from the team site, but now I've got a little bit more of a team site, if you like. I've got a project, what we term a project site, and when we go to that, you can see we have the same sort of activities and tasks that we had before. We've got the notebook, we've got the document, but we've got some other items in here. So we've got some lists where we can store issues and risks about the Microsoft project. So this is like the SharePoint site, but actually it's what we would call a full-blown enterprise project that is being stored in Project Server. So that works fairly well, and that's all I wanted to cover off on Project Server and Project Online, because I've spent many hours demoing this and done many sessions both for Microsoft Project User Group and Microsoft themselves, so hopefully you've seen some videos on this before. So let's come out of that, back into Project. We'll open up a different project this time. Let's actually just open a new project. We'll go and grab one from the web. Here's one, software development plan. This is the default one that I seem to use a lot of the time, just because I think mainly because it's got this nice graphical image at the top, which I then of course get rid of. So one of the things we can do, and I talked about, is just being able to cut and paste data into Excel. I literally want to show you that for the simple fact that I can highlight these items, or highlight a set of items. We'll take that data, press Ctrl C. I'm going to open up WinWord. Here it is. Again, this is Word 2016. We'll just open that up and Control V. So this is very simple, okay, and hopefully that isn't news to anybody, but it was news to one of my customers earlier this week. And what I do like about this actually is it does put the column headings in: task name, duration, start, finish, and of course so we can then move this lot around, do our customization, yada yada yada. So that's good. We won't save that. What else can we do? Well, I kind of finished with the enterprise piece, and I've finished with some of the more collaborative areas. I want to begin to talk about reporting and views. And this really is where we do a lot of our communication. So we will print something off to show somebody what we need to do. And this is where you need to know Microsoft Project fairly well. So what are we going to do here? Well, let's just take this view. This is a Gantt chart view, and if I wanted to share this with you, what could I do? Well, I could do anything that I've done before in terms of saving the actual file to a OneNote drive or a SkyDrive, or I could email it. And that's okay, but I've got to have Microsoft Project to open that file. What happens if we want to just show somebody a file, but they don't have, or share the file with them, but they don't have the right application, i.e. they haven't got Microsoft Project. There is no Microsoft Project viewer. So ultimately, I've got to export the data or print it off in some way. So let's just have a quick look at this. Maybe I want to print this as a one-pager for a customer. So what I would do initially is have a look at what's happening in file print, and within there we can see that actually we get 36 pages. It looks like that. So that's maybe a bit too much. This happens to be 4 pages wide to fit the Gantt chart on, and multiple pages, 9 rows worth of pages deep. So that's maybe a bit too much. So what we might want to do is come back out of print and say, okay, what do we want to print? Do we want to print everything, or maybe we just want to print off some of the high level tasks? So if I click under view and select outline, let's just select outline level 1. So outline level 1 gives me all the scope, etc., the analysis software requirements for design, yada yada yada. So I can have a quick print preview on there. That's okay. This is now 1 page long, but it's 4 columns wide. So what I now want to do is get rid of those 4 columns and make that 1 wide. Well, in this area, this is why it's 4 wide, because the Gantt chart at the moment is displaying a timescale that's a daily timescale. So let's change that. Within the View tab, I have timescale, and I can just select this button here which says let's have a look at the entire project. Okay, there we go. So now let's have a look at my print preview. Okay, that's looking not so bad. Now it fits on 1 page. But what do we have here? Well, actually I've got something called software development template. That's not really a phase, it's a milestone. Maybe I want to hide that from a view. What's a quick way of doing that? Well, there is a column, if you've never used it, called marked. Okay, marked is set to yes or no. So I'm going to mark this one as yes. Okay, and then I'm going to apply a filter to this, and I'm just going to say, okay, only show me the marked columns that are set to no. And so now we've lost and hidden, if you like, that last row. So now if I click print preview, that's great. I'm just literally getting the summary tasks that I asked for. So we finish at post implementation. But notice I've got this marked column, and maybe I want to change some of this formatting so the actual hours on here aren't necessarily important for me. So let's do that. Firstly, if I move this bar to the left, then what's printed is only complete columns here. So that's okay. Maybe I don't necessarily want the information column. So we'll hide that, right click and hide column, and the task mode column as well. We'll hide that column. I'm going to make this text, the task name, wider, and then if with everything highlighted, if I click up here and move this up, then all of the rows assume the right height. So we've now got an issue where the start and finish, I'm actually displaying the time on there. So I could click on File and Options and say, okay, for all of project, I want to change the date format so that it doesn't have the time on. But actually I don't want to do it. I just want to do it for this view. So I'm going to leave that there, and I'll change the date format for this view only. So if I click here, right click in this tab, and I can click on more tables. We're currently using the entry table. What we need to do is edit the entry table so that I can change the date format for the entry table, and I'll just have that just showing the day, month, year. So we'll click OK on that, apply that. So now we've lost, if you like, the times from those dates. So that's looking good. Highlight this, we'll just move that back up, and that would look good for our print. So if I now clicked print, then you can see that actually we are seeing exactly what we want, which we have the ID up here, then the task name, duration with the duration, the start date without the time, and finish date without the time, and then an overview of what we've got. Now that literally took me 5 minutes to get that. Where could I print that to? Well, I could print that to a cute PDF writer, and that would work very well. As part of that printing, I would want to go into the page setup and either look at the header, and maybe in the header we would put in the project name. So we'll just say the project title. Click that, and that would end up going in the header for us. And you can see that there are other items that we could choose either in the header or the footer or even in the legend. So we may say we want the project title, the date. I will quite often put the project manager, and you can even put in your own logo in there as well. Notice that the logo has to be, of course, the right size. It doesn't size for us. And if we click on view at the tab, another quite useful option here is to print a page that has the notes on at the end. So any notes about any tasks that are visible get printed as well. So I'd then print that to my cute PDF writer, and then maybe just email that to a user, and then they can get an overview of what we've got. That's good. I'm still in the Gantt chart, but what I might want to do is, if I'm going to do this print quite often, then I can come in and I can save this print. So at the moment, if I right click here, those are my default views. But if I've spent time configuring this view, I may save this view, and I'll call this customer print. And I do this quite a lot actually. So there's my customer print view. If I go back to my Gantt chart, then what I really want to do is set the Gantt chart back to how it was. So I'm going to reset it back to the default. When you see this sort of information, you always read it. Make sure that you're happy with it. This tells me we'll lose any formatting, etc., etc. I say yes to that. So we're back to my default here. We can get rid of any filters by quickly pressing F3. That comes back in. And we've got our default columns in here, task mode, etc. We've got the default date format, And of course, if I expand all tasks, we'll go back and see that. And obviously our timescale is back to days. So that's easy, that's printing. And what you need to do is learn how to set up and configure a view so that when we say, hey, I just want to go and do a customer print, well, there it is. We can just tidy that little lot up. But we get the columns we want, we get the format we want, and we just then need to get on our Gantt chart, and in this case change the outline level back to 1. So we've got most of that data there, and it's a very quick way to get back to printing off the view for our customer that we require. Go back to the Gantt chart. In fact, let's go back to resource usage, because this is a great view that I see from people. Who's doing what when. We quite often need to communicate this. So if I'm looking at my project manager, here's the project manager's activities on this task, or on this project if you like. Here's the amount of work. Of course, it's quite useful to be able to show when we're due to start those. So this is the start date, and again in this case they're ordered kind of by project ID, and project ID pretty much gives us the start date that they're working in. Okay, so the project manager, if we cut and pasted this data into Word and Excel, that would help that project manager a huge amount. Of course, we could go in and just change the sort and say we'd like to sort this by start date or some other value, so that the project manager has an ascending or incremental view of what they're supposed to be doing. So that works very well. Now let's go and have a look at a tool called the timeline. To have a look at the timeline, I'm going to open up this software development plan that I saved earlier onto my vconf session. It downloads that, and I must admit I did prep this one up before, and if we right click in here, then you'll see I've got a new view called overall timeline. However, let's just go and look at a Gantt chart and show you how you switch the timeline on. Ultimately, under the View tab, you've got a timeline piece here. Now, what we're able to do is add activities and tasks onto that timeline. And you can see that if I take something like Scope Complete, I highlight that in the Gantt chart and I right click there, I can select Add to Timeline. And that becomes a milestone here. The timeline feature's been around since 2010, so hopefully most of you are using it. I would quite often just add in the milestones and then maybe the phases, but we'll just go in and add some of these milestones into here. Obviously, to do this quickly, I would use a milestone filter and just then multi-select all of those milestones that are coming through via the filter, but in this case this will be sufficient. So this is all very good, and of course using the timeline and clicking into the timeline here, I then get the ability to use these timeline format tools, and I can copy this timeline out for presentation, full size, etc. So I'm just going to insert a new slide. How do we do that? There we go. We'll just change the layout of this a little bit, and now I can paste this in either as a picture or as actual individual pieces of office art. I quite like to paste it in as a picture because then I'm able to just resize that all as one portion. I get the formatting right in Microsoft Project itself. So that works fairly well. What most people don't realize is that actually you can have multiple timelines. And to create a multiple timeline, of course, you click into the View tab, you click into Other Views, you click into More Views, you take your timeline view and you just copy it and you give it a new name, and then you are able to edit that timeline. So let's just go and apply a timeline I created called the Overall Timeline. So over here, this is a full screen size of it. So I've spent some time creating this and say what's the overall timeline of our plan, and you'll see that we've got the same milestones on here, but actually I put in some phases and then I put in some high level phases and coloured all those in. So you might think that my formatting is fairly dodgy, and I would tend to agree with you, but if we're able to copy that one and put that one into PowerPoint as well, then I'm able to kind of see multiple timelines in one area. So that works. Now, in terms of Microsoft Project, if we open up Project 2016 and we just open up a blank project, then you see that yes, I've got the timeline feature here, but we've got the ability to add in multiple timeline bars. So then when I have some tasks, we'll just enter a couple of tasks in here. We'll just call this milestone 1, milestone 2, milestone 3. We'll make those 0 days duration each. And now I can take these milestones and I can put those on the timeline. So add to timeline. Add that to the timeline, add that to the timeline. Maybe we just change these dates to so we reflect maybe exactly what we're going to do. So this one can be next Tuesday. We'll make this one Friday, and we'll leave this one today. So you can see them appear on the timeline here. What I can do is I can drag this one down and put it on a different timeline. Okay, and if I don't want that timeline bar, I can right click and remove that timeline bar. So now I've got multiple items on the timeline, or multiple timelines, and each item can exist on a different timeline. And then of course I can copy that full size, and I can take that little lot, and if we move this up, right click here and paste that again into my PowerPoint. So these images and this ability to paste these images is great. I'm going to go back to 2013 here, because sometimes you don't want all of this image. What you can do, but what is quite often hidden away, is just highlight a little bit of that. So left click and control and drag, or left click and drag if you like, and then press Control C. Okay, that takes the portion that we've highlighted. So if I create myself a new slide here, right click here and paste this in, actually I don't get the whole timeline, I just get the area that I had selected and copied. So that's a little known feature of the timeline, that you can select some of it and then copy that in as an image as well. So those timeline views are nice. What else do we have? Well, we have a huge amount of reporting in Project 2013. This for me was the USP, the unique selling point around Project 2013, was this whole report canvas. So I'm able to go and see different dashboards. So let's just go and have a look at the project overview dashboard. Okay, so this is a pre-configured report for me, and Microsoft built in a few new features in Project 2013 that allow this reporting to work nicely. So what can we see here? Well, this is a dashboard. It's predefined from Microsoft. We can come in and we can change the text because we might want this to be say my project overview, and just instead of project overview. So that's okay. We can resize and move items around. So I can drag that little lot and move it all over to the right hand side here. I may change this text, of course. I might go in and insert my own images and logos and shapes and create my own charts and tables. Let's just go and show that it's live. So scope here is 0% complete. So let's go back to my Gantt chart view. In fact, we can click here, go to the Gantt chart, and let's just say for argument's sake that all of this is 100% complete. So we'll mark that complete. That's the easiest way to do that. So those activities are all done. If we go back to my report dashboard and have a look at my project overview, then you can see this data is driven live from here. And of course, all I need to do then for this report is to come in and print the thing off. So under format here, under design, there's a couple of things we can do. We can set up the page breaks, so we can see where the page breaks are, and this is all going to fit nicely on an A4 page. We can change the margin, we can change the orientation, we can change the size of the report, and then of course I just need to click on my print preview and here's the report coming off. So that's okay, but maybe we didn't want these milestones due. Okay, maybe that table we didn't want in there, or we wanted both the finish date and the baseline finish date. So when I click in a table, then we get the field list up on the right hand side here, and maybe I want to put the baseline finish in, so we'll do that. So that inserts a new column. This is all not applicable at the moment, so let's just do a little bit of resizing on that. The term baseline finish, maybe that's too much, so I can right click here, go to field settings, and I'll just call that BL0 or BL finish. It's a little bit shorter. The date format, again, maybe I don't want that as the default because I'm not too concerned about the time that the baseline is due to finish. Rather, I want to know just the date. So we'll change the date format for both of these. And that gives us a little bit more real estate on the screen. We can drag that over now and drag that one over. And then if we go to project and we set a baseline, let's go back to the Gantt chart, project, the baseline field is now available for us because we're in the right area. We'll take that baseline, then we'll go back to the report, into the dashboard, and we'll have a look at that project overview. And now we've got our baseline finish coming in. So it's very, very simple to modify and create these reports. So what else might we do? I just want to see if we got some costs against these resources, because recently I've become a massive fan of exporting data to Excel. So if I open up the resource sheet, we've got no standard rate, so let's just put some in. If I right click and go back to my Gantt chart, then we can insert the column, of course, called cost. And we can see now the cost for each activity, and in fact the cost for the whole project. So we have a tool here called Visual Reports, and Visual Reports are another way to collaborate data in the project. Now Visual Reports can use the project data as the source file, and they export the data either into Visio or into Excel. These are the Excel type reports, and you can create your own custom templates. So here I've got one of actual cost versus planned cost. What I want to show you is literally the cash flow report. I can just select view. Now what this does is it goes and builds me a local analysis services cube, if you like, and then opens Excel against that cube. It's opened Excel on my other screen. We'll just bring it in here. So that's what it looks like by default. Not particularly pretty yet. Okay, let me just zoom in a little bit more on that. Okay, so that's the chart, and at the moment I'm just looking at quarter 4 2015 and quarter 1 2016. I've got two tabs, two worksheets. If I go into task usage, then actually what I can begin to do is expand these quarters into the weeks, and I've got cost and cumulative cost. Go back to my chart and I start to drill into the data, and you can see here how very useful this chart is going to be for me. So that works quite well. Maybe we're not so much interested in cost here, but maybe we're just interested in work. So I could uncheck from the pivot table, of course, for cost, and I could pick up the work, and then we can go and have a look at that chart. And here's the amount of work that's being done. And there's again something that we could screenshot, and I'm just going to use another tool that I like for capturing the images, but we'll take that image, we'll copy that, and then we'll open up my favorite collaboration tool, communication tool, of course, this one, PowerPoint, new slide. Thank you very much. Right click in there and then paste that in as an image. So simple. So I think all those are really powerful tools. Let's go back to the slides here and just wrap this up. So what did we learn today? Well, firstly, we learned that 90% of statistics are made up on the spot, but more importantly, we looked at how do we work together with other users, and what are the tools inside project that we can utilize, and what other tools are available as part of our SharePoint deployment or our Office 365 deployment. So really, that's it from me. Thank you very much for spending your time If you do have any comments or questions, etc., go back to the first slide, and there are my contact details available on there. Please don't use me for masses of project support, free support. I'm not here for that, but do ask me some questions about the product and how you can get best value out of it, and I'd be more than willing, if you like, to try and answer those questions for you. Okay, thank you, have a great day, and goodbye from, at the moment, a rainy UK.